Hi, folks. I thought I was going to be here this week and then discovered that an event that I need to do in New Haven on Friday means I have to travel around and it's complicated. Anyway, the short version of this is I don't get to be with you this week. However, I didn't want to let the week go by without beaming in and offering some thoughts, particularly given what's coming up this weekend. So, needless to say, in the times that we live in, there are 892 different things I could talk about that are in the news that would be relevant and important and would have historical bearing, that history could help us understand them better. But I'm going to do something unexpected, and I really hope Rabbi Beth is here this week. I do. I mean, it will become apparent why within a moment or two. But what I want to do, rather than focus on one of the 892 things that happened in the news that are upsetting, that are abnormal, that are dangerous for all kinds of reasons that American history can tell us, and that's why it might be becoming harder to teach American history. Rather than do that, I actually want to focus on the holiday that begins on Saturday night, the Jewish holiday, and that is the holiday of Passover. Begins with a Seder, with a ritualistic meal on Saturday night. Now, Passover represents more than three things, but three things that I think have real relevance now. And that's why I want to mention it, rather than focusing on, let's just call them the 10 plagues of the week. Okay? So, Passover is the story of how in ancient Egypt, the Jews were freed from slavery by God, who visited 10 plagues upon Egypt, including things like locusts and boils and frogs, and then the last big whammy plague, the killing of the firstborn. So finally, the Israelites were let go. They were freed from bondage. They did have to wander 40 years in the desert, but they ended up in the promised land. So that's the Passover story. And what Passover celebrates is the liberation of the Israelites, of the Jews from Egypt. And it does that thinking very hard about three things. It thinks about the fact of liberation. It thinks about the fact that the Israelites were liberated. They were freed from slavery. Now, there are all kinds of ways in which, and I'm not being political here, and I'm not going to talk about Liberation Day. What I am talking about, rather than liberation, is hope. Because part of what Passover celebrates, despite the fact that there are all the plagues and you drink some wine for each plague, and it's the Seder is a wonderful ritualistic meal that's done in a community, in a family, coming back to that shortly. But at any rate, part of it has to do with the being freed. And the idea that despite being in the depths of slavery, the Israelites were freed. I connect that, and what I want to connect that to in my comments this morning is hope. Is the fact that even in the depths of despair, can be freedom. There can be liberation if you believe that it can come. And I know this sounds sort of hunky, dory, Pollyanna-ish, but I honestly believe that we have to believe on an ongoing basis that there is hope for something better, that we coming together and acting on that hope, on that belief, can accomplish great things and can help get us beyond this moment. I probably don't need to say it. It's probably apparent through all of my comments over all of the years we've been doing this. I believe that if we come together, I believe that we have that hope. We should have that hope. So hope, liberation, that aspect of Passover is part of what I'm offering this Friday morning. A second thing that I'm offering this Friday morning has to do with part of what happens during the Seder, the Passover Seder. In a way, it's grounded on history. you relive in some ritualistic way the experience of being liberated from slavery. So during the week of Passover, you don't eat leavened bread because the Jews fled Egypt so quickly that their bread didn't have time to rise. You eat, I never remember which is the bitter herb. You eat horseradish. You eat something that's bitter to represent the bitterness of slavery. And something that represents the mortar of the bricks that the Jews were forced to create for the Egyptians. You basically, through a ritualistic Seder plate, bit by bit by bit, have a kind of ritualistic reliving of the Exodus, the liberation, the escape. So, I mean, in a sense, all religious holidays have some connection to history. But Passover is about reliving the history with a group of people at a table. They're even supposed to deliberately, like, luxuriate, lounge, to prove that you are not in a state of slavery. You are lounging around a table with fellows who are all celebrating the liberation of the Jews from Egypt. So, history matters is a big part of the Passover celebration. And it matters in such a concrete way. It's one of the things I love. Oh, I know, it's the chorosis is the mortar from the bricks. Brain, it's been a year since I thought about Passover. The chorosis, which is like a mix of wine and apples and honey and walnuts that is really yummy, and you put it on matzah, and matzah is the unleavened bread that you eat, which admittedly is good for the first 3 days, and then it tastes like you're eating cardboard. But still, I love matzah. At any rate, you're reliving and rethinking and re-experiencing and reprocessing the meaning of, in this case, the history of the exodus of the Jews from Egypt. But it's such a concrete example of the many, many ways in which history matters. History always matters. And history depends on the history, but generally speaking, history is deep in our bones. History is who we are. The history of the American nation is what this nation is, what it's done, what it's accomplished, what it hasn't done, and what it's failed to do. All of that together. That is our shared history as Americans. And I realize not everyone watching is an American, but humor me for this moment. As Americans, our history is the story of us, who we are, who we've been, and who we can be. History matters for that reason and so many other reasons, which brings me to the third point that I want to raise about Passover. This one will not surprise you in any way, and that is community. Because Passover Seders are about being in a community of people and going through these rituals and telling this story about the Exodus in a group and enjoying this meal together. More often than not, it's family coming together. When I was a kid, we always went to my grandparents' house and had a big meal and went through the Seder service, and my grandfather read the Hebrew parts as quickly as he could because he had 5 grandchildren who were very frustrated with the Seder and wanted to begin eating. I have wonderful memories of being a kid in my grandparents' house every year and going through the Seder. I will even reveal to you something that we figured out partway through, and we never said anything because we couldn't bear to tell my grandmother. My grandmother was famous. We always had like a big turkey dinner for Passover. My grandmother was famous for her gravy, like grandma's gravy. That was a thing, right? And so grandma would make us, like, you know, whenever we visited her, we'd come home with like bags of gravy to put in the freezer so that we could pull it out to have grandma's special gravy. Well, grandma's gravy had flour in it. Grandma's gravy was not good for Passover. And there was one year, I don't remember when, I was older, I was probably in junior high school, where we realized grandma's gravy was actually, we shouldn't be having it for Passover. It was like, oh no. At any rate, I have now revealed this to you. But my larger point here is it's community, family, that's another thing. And community writ large, community meaning the Jewish people, community meaning the friends who gather together to commemorate anything, really. Passover is about a community of people celebrating and remembering where they've been in the current moment. We need to always remember where we've been, and particularly with this community, this National Council for History Education community, we are a community of history. We are a community of people who understand the importance of understanding our history, the significance of it, the way in which it explains to us who we are, who we can be, helps us understand where we can go and how we got to where we are, for better and worse. History is all of those things and more. And Passover, about hope and history and community, feels at this particular moment, the 2025 Passover, just feels like it has so much to say to this particular history community. So that is what I wanted to offer this Friday morning. I'm so frustrated that I can't be there with you. Suffice it to say, I'm doing something that will be ideally very useful in a concrete way. I'm not here for good reason, but I'm frustrated because I really wanted to be with you. Now, I thought hard, right? Since I knew I'm pre-recording this, I'm about to, in a little while, send it off so that it can be posted, and there'll be a conversation with Claire and Annie about whatever the heck they want to talk about related to this. I did have time to think about a mug. Now, if there are those of you who are watching this and haven't been here before, for 200 and weeks, I don't know, 270, 240, 260, I never know how many weeks. For over 250 weeks, we have been doing this weekly conversation about history and the past and the present. And I always have a coffee mug, almost always, once or twice. I've been in a non-coffee mug zone, but generally I have a coffee mug that relates to what we're talking about. And today I decided I'm not going to have a coffee mug because of the theme of what I'm talking about. Because during the Passover Seder, we're supposed to be luxuriating and enjoying the fact that we are not a people in bondage, that we had liberation, that we are a community of people who survived those times and are here still as a community, understanding what we have gone through, historically speaking, and knowing that we're still here now. So, rather than a coffee mug, in the spirit of luxury, sort of sitting back and relaxing in the luxury of the present, I don't have coffee. I have a martini, and it is a martini in the honorary martini glass. I don't think if you can see it, but it says History Matters, and so do cocktails from the 250th episode. So it is a martini to celebrate the spirit of Passover, and it is a martini glass that this community provided. So everybody, be safe. Remember, hope, history, community. Those things will always matter. They will always matter. So take this as a moment to join together, whatever community is here on this Friday. I guess it'll be the 11th. And remember those three things, and be grateful for those three things. For freedom, for the fact that we know what it is, for history, for the fact that we know why it's important, and for community, because we have one, and we're in it, and it matters. Okay, folks, I'm going to stop pontificating, and I will see you for real the following Friday. I'm sorry I can't be there today. And thank you for engaging in the conversation of democracy, folks. And thanks to Annie and Claire and NCHE. I think I got my whole spiel in. Okay, I'll see you in a week, folks. Bye.